Hey kids! Today we're going to talk about Bozo the Clown. What? Hi, my name is Stephanie Bree, and also you're not kids. Well, you were at one time, I assume. But remember Bozo the Clown? If you're a millennial or older, Gen X, yeah, of course you do. Hell, even maybe the boomers do. Because they watched it with their kids. But what the hell is Bozo the Clown? Well, have you ever seen The Simpsons? You know Krusty the Clown and Itchy and Scratchy cartoons that appear in that show? That whole bit is spoofing Bozo the Clown. Now, Bozo the Clown was not a national TV show that had a wide audience that everybody watched. What Bozo the Clown did have, it was a licensed program, syndicated but franchised. So, like, different local TV stations had their own Bozo the Clown show based on the character. Now, one of those local TV stations launched a satellite operation in the 80s and introduced the Superstation concept, a local TV station that broadcast over cable and satellite to the entire nation. And that channel was WGN out of Chicago. Now, we're not going to get into the complicated and messy history of WGN. I may have already talked about them previously in another video. If I haven't, I'll get to it at some point. But, by the way, kids, don't smoke. Do as I do, not as I say, or do as I say, not as I do. You know what? You know the mantra. Don't smoke. It's not good for you. But anyways, hey, listen. The WGN show got popular, right? And so that's the version of Bozo the Clown most people remember. But Bozo the Clown was as a syndicated program, and even as the WGN, the national version, disappeared in about 2001. And all of the other versions were already disappearing earlier because the national show was more popular. So, what happened? Well, the story that WGN gives is, well, there was declining viewership and the show was too expensive to produce, so they canceled it. Yeah, but what were the factors that contributed to the declining viewership? Why did people... the Bozo the Clown show was popular for like 40 years, and then it just disappeared. So what happened? Well, two things happened, I think, and yeah, the cost factor. Corporations, they're gonna bitch about spending money. Obviously, if they're not making money, they're gonna throw a hissy fit. But yeah, that was a factor. But why did the viewership decline? Where did the viewers go? What happened? Why did people stop watching Bozo the Clown? Well, the first thing that happened was cable television. You see, when Bozo was popular, you lived in a world where you only had 3, maybe 4 or 5 TV channels at most. ABC, NBC, CBS, and you may have had a couple of local UHF stations that did their own weird shit. Maybe you had a DuPont network, or maybe you had, and then you probably had a PBS at some point. And then in the late 80s, you may have ended up one of your local UHF stations turned into a Fox network. And then eventually you got WB and UPN and Univision and a few others. But the over-the-air broadcast environment that Bozo was popular in was very small. There wasn't a lot of competition. You didn't have a lot of options. So all the kids just tuned into Bozo the Clown because there was nothing else to watch, and he was kind of funny. But cable isn't the only thing that killed the Bozo the Clown show. And why didn't Bozo migrate to the internet? The streaming. Why didn't, like, say, Netflix or Hulu pick it up? Well, there's a very good reason why today a show about clowns wouldn't fly with the general public. And that's because of It, Poltergeist, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. In the 1980s, I don't know if it was a conspiracy or if somebody in Hollywood hated clowns, but there was, I'm going to allege, a concerted effort to try to make children terrified of clowns. You had the scary clown doll in Poltergeist, which is, I will maintain, the scariest movie I've ever seen. Come at me in the comments. I don't give a fuck. That movie's terrifying. And if it doesn't scare you, just know that 3 people involved in its production died either shortly after or involved in, and I'm talking like the little girl died. The daughter was murdered, and I don't remember the other one, but and those were real skeletons they used in the scene with the skeletons. Even if you set all that aside, the movie's fucking terrifying. Because of that goddamn doll. And then in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, while it is a mostly lighthearted children's movie about a, geeky, overly excited man-child on a quest to find his stolen bike, there's a terrifying nightmare scene where a bunch of scary clowns murder his bike and disassemble it. So that would have been scary for kids. And then, Killer Clowns from Outer Space is kind of a horror comedy, but it's still a legit horror movie. People do die in it. It does have some scares. It's not like scary, but to a kid it could be. And then, of course, in 1990 you had the It miniseries, where the absolute human treasure, and we will all be devastated when he dies, the legendary Tim Curry. I had to pause for a second because I had a hiccup, but anyways, terrified us with his portrayal of Pennywise the Dancing Clown. So by the mid-90s, cable was massively popular. Streaming was right around the corner. DVD and home video was a thing. People had other options. Kids could watch Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. They didn't have to watch, or even Fox Kids. They didn't have to watch that shitty-ass, scary motherfucking clown. Now, The Simpsons kind of picked up on kids are scared of clowns because they introduced Sideshow Bob, a scary clown, and there are a lot of terrifying clown bits in their annual horror Treehouse of Terror or Treehouse of Horror skit show that they do. And then going from there, you just get more and more children that are just scared of clowns. So not only did you have the decline of Bozo the Clown, the popular kids TV show, but alongside that, you had the decline of because you also had Insane Clown Posse. I'm telling you, kids were programmed to be scared of clowns in the 80s and 90s. And that has lingered on today. Now we have even scarier things like Art the Clown. So the people decided that clowns were a no-no. And so, the other clowns, like popular ones, like the circus, Barnum and Bailey, all of that stuff, people weren't as interested in the clown aspect, so the clown performances started to decline at the same time. So, Pennywise killed Bozo the Clown, not corporate greed. Stay cool.